WTM. What's going on, everyone? I hope you are well and doing great on this Thursday morning. Ace traders, intraday traders, paradise, no doubt about it. Quick. Listen, sometimes markets are easy, and I guess it depends on the type of trader you are. But when they are moving in one direction with that type of volatility, and then you have the love for the counter trend trader with the nice bounce over there. What happened though? That's the question. By the way, let's just start off over here and wanted to just bring to attention, and you're probably aware that the U.S. Senate AG committee has just passed the crypto market structure bill. It gives the CFTC primary authority to regulate Bitcoin, treat it as a commodity, not as a security. The next step is going to be a full Senate vote, and then House coordination and President Trump's signature. It looks like sooner than expectations, it's possible we get the crypto market structure bill. This was one of the, let's say, overhanging risks that Grok was specifically pointed to as I shared my S-curve adoption theory with him, and opens up the door for a much higher probability of the walk up to continue. Obviously, we'll be paying a close attention to what does occur just to get some near-term price action out of the way. Building off of where we were yesterday, we were right into the resistance, and we were just noting that that was actually, even though this is where the initial breakdown occurred, that was a retest into broken support, so far acting as resistance. I thought maybe there was a significant chance after the FOMC, after the earnings yesterday, that we could neutralize this pattern. We're having a resumption down at this minute, and the market open has been absolutely, I don't know the correct adjective, but I'm going to go with brutal. And you can see over here the price of silver. Earlier this morning, I didn't get a chance to tell my daughter, but I wanted to count off. I saw it clip 120 an ounce. I didn't get a chance to tell her. I check again, and the price is at like 106 or something like that. I don't know what it was. And you could see that this is really tough price action. Anyone who was looking for a sell-off in silver, and we noted this would be the first breakdown over here, I mean, what do you do in that type of situation, right? By the way, this is now nullified as we've seen a resumption up. So listen, I'm personally under the belief that's just nuts. What is that intraday drawdown on that from peak to low? A 12% intraday move. Woo! That is, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of it, but it is not something you see every day. Let me just come out to a daily candle. Is that over here suggested that it was just a massive shakeout, or is this looking to some people like some topping price action? I don't know. I'm going to defer to all you guys and see what you guys see. We are looking here at gold, similar. This is on the monthly chart. I have to say, about an hour ago, this looked pretty ominous with a major wick, and much like silver over here, it is forming what maybe is going to be a doji if we close back towards the top, but some pretty intense price action. I have to pick this up because I meant to yesterday, and I just want to know your thoughts. And this was coming off of Doug Casey. And Doug Casey was like, listen, this is the time to buy all of these silver miners, and going on podcast on X. And I was like, man, it's weird because this guy's been in these positions, and now he's getting like saying that you should. I mean, guys. Anyway, it doesn't seem to line up to me, and you have to be extraordinarily cautious when you start seeing. We talked about Druckenmiller. You all know how much respect I have for Druckenmiller. And Druckenmiller was talking about the copper trade, and he's saying, I've never spent so much time analyzing a market before. I want to have a position. I don't know what size position I have, and I wouldn't take, he's known for taking big positions. Like George Soros taught him, when you see something aligned, you go big, right? Now, Soros is credited for taking down the Bank of London, making $1 billion in a day. It was Stanley who architected the trade, but it was Soros who made him lever up like crazy. And Stanley's saying basically, look, I want a copper trade. I don't know how much to put on right now, and I'm looking out for a hard landing. And unless we have a hard landing and there's a monetary response, and then favorable government regulatory conditions for basically EV market and whatnot, he's like, I don't know how much of a position to, and I was like, well, it's really strange. Usually Druck talks about positions after he's taken them, not before, just making an observation. But over here, I was a little skeptical. I was like, wait, why is this guy telling everyone it's time to pivot into miners? And y'all know what an astute market participant Doug Casey is. And since making the rounds, you're looking at this thing off, 24%, 23%. I don't know, but there's a lesson in there. I'm just making observations and I'm just sharing them with you because I know that it's helpful to a lot of people. You can't, this monitor here, I got like a travel monitor. It's awesome because it's big. So I could it's easy to travel with the Mac Studio, but it's a lot easier also to travel with this monitor, which is basically the same size as the ones I have in my office, but it doesn't have a camera. So there we are. But we'll be back on Monday with the little guy in the picture. Wow. So those are nothing more than some observations. Why we're talking about precious metals? Yesterday, when was the last time we had a revaluation of gold? Like you said, this is the first time we've seen gold repricing in real time. And I think for quite a while, we've been noting that this is not the debasement trade. And gold is definitely also part of the debasement trade, unequivocally. But what we're seeing here is monetary reset happening in real time. And what you're seeing here is instead of an overnight repricing, it's happening in real time. And it's been happening here for the past 11 months. It's as apparent as anything. And I just want to go ahead and just pull up a chart really quick. And, obviously we've been looking at the monthly here on gold because gold has been, for the last 11 months, overbought on the monthly and it hasn't stopped, And the question is, well, hold on a second. I wouldn't think it would stop its ascent a few months after like it did in the last. First of all, the answer to the question is the last time that happened was right after they confiscated everyone's gold. So you saw over here, Executive Order 6102, issued by Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1933, requiring citizens turn in their gold. And it was, by a month later, by the end of the month. And then, they raised the price of gold right after 1934, after they confiscated the gold. They raised it from $20 an ounce, 20.67 cents an ounce, to $35. And that was done overnight. And that was the last time there was a gold was being repriced. If I were to ask, let me just come over here, gold repriced in what year? They talk about different milestones, but this was, in our lifetime, even though none of us were, I don't know, even though this is back to 1933, 1934, that was an overnight repricing of gold. Now, the other question that came up over here was, in an observation, he's saying, listen, Jordan, I don't think if the Fed is forced to return to outright QE that we're going to see a peak in gold and precious metals a few months later. So there's one thing that I've been painting a picture of, and timing is everything, right? And you learn from the greats, from Druckenmiller, how difficult timing is. Druckenmiller was one of the first to get heavy in the bear market of 2022 into NVIDIA. And he was also one of the first to exit very early and timing is everything. He was wet. His timing on the upside was right. I know a friend who knows a friend, both in the. This guy has like he's in sales, and he does. I know some people who crush it. DocuSign making serious money in sales. This guy was making on the margin. Like, he's a family man supporting his family, and he invested very early into Nvidia, and he has held it since. And then I know some other pretty astute finance guys, and they're like, "Hey, listen, you should probably, take some off and look at buying muni bonds, just to have that steady income, protect what you have." And this guy just continues holding, and amazing story, because he's been able to turn what was, I'm sure for him, into the investment, a sizable amount of money, but honestly was, you're talking mid five figures, and is now mid seven figures. Absolutely astonishing. Woo! Woo! While we're talking about friend stories, because we're just having fun here as friends, I was at a party recently. Not a party. It was like a fundraiser type event. And for me, it's a party these days. And someone's like, you have to talk to my husband. He's all into Bitcoin and crypto. And I'm like, oh, man, I can't do that. All right. So I start talking with him, and, no, now this is just the way it is. I mean, outside of 18 at the Bitcoin conference in San Francisco, more often than not, when I'm in a room, I would say that I probably know a lot more than the people that I'm in the room with when it comes to Bitcoin, and I've I know a thing or two about the crypto market as well, and as the guys ask me, like, that's coming to my head, and thank God I didn't say that. He's telling me the first time he bought Bitcoin was using MoneyGram. So I knew right away, because I've read people doing that early on before Mt. Gox, and so he had bought some in 2012, and then he's like, it wasn't too much or anything like that. And then he's telling me how he then went to work for BitPay. Obviously, I'm familiar with BitPay, and he's like, with them, they were able to basically help him understand why he should take a big position. And then he's telling me just like, his whole Bitcoin strategy at this point is just that he distributes into strong bull markets. And that's it. So that's beautiful right there. All right, that's our friend's little chatter today, and I'm reading some of the comments as we go along. Liquidity. Anyway, here we go. Boom. So we're looking at this chart, and we're getting back into, hey, look, I don't think there's going to be any type of peak after the next devaluation. And that would make sense from the standpoint of looking at the debasement of the currency, looking at the debasement of fiat. If there's one thing that is a certainty, it's the future debasement and acceleration of that debasement. And we see that expressed through not only government debts, U.S. government debt, and now you're also seeing it expressed through hard money. And starting here with Bitcoin, now most recently silver, and that slingshot's coming when it's going to be Bitcoin's turn, and hard money is definitely expressing this. As I look towards the future, I am by the way, I was watching or listening to a most recent podcast of, who are these, the Moonshot podcast, and they were all just back from Davos, and which was interesting. I think they were tired, and because they were tired, they were able to go at a little slower pace, and it was super interesting. But what they were talking about is that it would be extremely healthy for the pace of this build out to slow down, and from many different aspects. Obviously, from infrastructure standpoint, in not only having enough compute, but more importantly, have enough power to compute it. And then from the ethical standpoint about like, let's be careful about what we're building. Because when we are building something that's going to have greater intelligence than all of humanity, it's very, and that would be super healthy, right? By the way, as we're talking about this, I'm coming back to commodities, but this is just the path we're on here today. So I'm going to just keep going over here, and I'm looking for a specific chart here. And well, since I can't find it, I'll start here. So, and I wanted to show, obviously, Microsoft getting crushed here this morning. Down 12% last I checked. Look at that major gap. This is a daily chart. And look at this gap over here. Oh, closed. This is not closing the gap, would be trading, roughly 396, but took out the open or the low of this particular gap today. And sometimes that's enough. And if you look at Meta also had earnings and is doing something quite different. And Meta, in a down market, holding up some impressive gains. It's probably about 7%. And the difference between these two is one thing that's the same is both of them are increasing their CapEx spendings. What is different is Meta, through its ads, is earning. And what's different here is, although Azure earnings were up, Microsoft Gaming's revenue, it's gaming from Xbox and whatnot, were down 7, 8, 9%. And right now the market is being a little bit more careful. And I've spoken about Oracle and the dangers involved there. And then we all know that Oracle's a part of that circle jerk with OpenAI and the people out of Japan, Mashu-san, whatever, and Microsoft's involved in here. 46%, 47% of Azure's revenue is coming through OpenAI. I mean, talk about too big to fail. And they have that lawsuit going on with Musk. If OpenAI were to fail, it's taken down. I mean, it's not going to take down Microsoft, but it's going to have some severe damage. It could take down Oracle. Is it too big to fail? What would Microsoft do if Azure was under trouble? Would they be taking that $65, $70 billion a year they're spending towards AI build out? Or would they be pumping that money towards open? I don't know. That's a story, though, to watch. Now, we're worried about CapEx spending if it were to slow down. That's not what we're seeing. I had something highlighted over there, and I seem to have lost it, so maybe it's just one page away. And what it was, here you go. CapEx spending has increased across the board. Now, we still have, obviously, Alphabet, and the market is just, this is an important line, rewarding the ability to monetize it. So what we've seen is over the last few months, when it comes to this space, is that the market has more concerns about, the people that are spending the money, whether or not they're able to also monetize it. And this is important over here. And I think this is why you saw Buffett invest in Alphabet when he did. And Alphabet does seem to be a leader. Market's liking what Meta's doing today and has legitimate concerns about what is happening with Microsoft here. And we'll see. What WTF just happened. What's interesting about this morning, I heard someone saying earlier in the chat that, well, it was very clear to him what was going to take place this morning. Not for me. Sometimes you have a very clear indication of what's happening. So I liked seeing Zero Hedge putting out this headline because it seemed to me, and just a quick preview over here, and then there's one more I want to preview. You're seeing on the open up, boom, markets crashing like crazy. Microsoft leading the way down. Bitcoin having that breakdown, lowest since December 18th, with a lot of leverage longs getting liquidated. And you saw the massive volatility that happened in gold. Gold wiping out in 30 minutes a market cap greater than all of cryptos market cap, which is quite interesting. This one I want to just fast forward to you. Gold is astonishing. Gold's getting astonishing, but backdrop supportive for real assets. And hey, it is supportive of real assets. And obviously we're looking at Bitcoin as being a real asset, but Jordan is digital. The Fed, hawkish at the margin. Well, there's one thing I saw that the Fed was saying, and it was a lot towards that reacceleration theme that I'm pointing out is going to become the next narrative. They were talking about growth being supportive and the labor market stabilizing, which is something that I was saying a few months ago at its worst, that likely it's going to stabilize. So that's interesting. The Fed was actually, I don't think that's hawkish. I think that's absolutely awesome. But I think what they're looking for is cuts. I don't think that there's going to be any more further cuts as Powell, until Powell leaves, giving the new chairman the ability here to, at least on the surface, show that he's being supportive of the president and America's desire here to run this thing hot. You saw Bessent reaffirming the strong dollar policy. Whenever they say they want a strong dollar, that always means they want a weak dollar, by the way. And blah, 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 commodities. Bum, 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 bum. There's something here I want to read to you. So right here, these two lines, I firmly support, because it feels to me. Feels like late cycle inflationary boom, high nominal growth, which we have, and indiscriminate bid to anything physical. The war economy analogy also doesn't feel far off. And I mean, we could very much argue, as this new world order is being established, that we are very much in a war economy. And we know that we've had obviously the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and we've seen the use of tariffs and whatnot. All right. Oh, I love Elon's macro hard project. And so not only Elon's macro hard project, which is, I love the shot at Microsoft. But here's the thing, is that it was revealed recently, within the last several weeks, that Bezos also is taking upon the same project. And this leads me to believe that the possibility exists between Elon and Bezos that there actually could be a manufacturing renaissance that takes place within the US. And of course, the Chinese are the absolute undisputed leaders in the world when it comes to manufacturing today. And their automation, their productivity is absolutely amazing. But I could picture a scenario here where, led by Elon's macro hard, where you have AI designing the process, you got Optimus running the floor, and you have all the manufacturing in-house. It could be and Bezos is doing the same thing. You know, those guys are both into the space race. I don't know. I think that's amazing. I would love for Elon to roll all his ventures into one holding company, right? So you would have SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink. You would have the Boring Company, and then also have macro hard. I mean, is that something that you could see yourself investing in? Elon is talking about also, though, right now, that he can't get enough compute. We're looking at XAI increasing their spending on CapEx. The build out continues. The AI boom, the AI build out continues. It will become a bubble, and the bubble will likely most pop once the CapEx spending runs back. That's the area to watch out for. When that happens, then likely we will be on the cusp of a commodity super cycle. And for sure, it's already underway. It's probably early, but it's well underway. And it's true that because I expect this reacceleration to to like come to fruition, at that point, I don't see commodities leading during that phase. Much like if there is a massive expansion, if there's a return to outright QE, after I expect it peaks, and when I say it peaks, it goes into a massive trend, a sideways trend. It's off, and then we have the qualifier when QT begins. Then shortly thereafter, to be looked for price to a big correction in price to bottom out. But my reasoning, and check this for us in LLM and have this conversation. My own intuition is that at that particular moment, high growth prospects with all that liquidity swishing around is much more attractive than hard assets. And that's the place to be. And you could see, for example, the outperformance of the Russell versus gold in that particular phase, of tech versus anything in that phase. And that leads to things like Bitcoin, the bull of all bulls, really running. So, and of course, you could just do something simple, and I think it's worthy to do it. And you could look at the peak and then look for the resumption out, right? And then that's on gold. Here's on silver. And look at there, it's silver, the break above. And honestly, I would think that would be the time to look towards pivoting back into precious metals. I don't think that a massive expansion of the balance sheet is negative for precious metals. I just think that it opens up the prospects for more opportunities for greater return elsewhere. And then ultimately, that devaluation is going to lead towards an inflationary response and cause the central banks to have to put on the brakes. And when they put on the brakes, that sets up the coming, let's say, correction and bottom of these hard assets, and then setting up the next cycle. So much different view of how most people view cycles, but I think it's pretty. I like it a lot. How about that? Whoa. I was a friend of mine was we were hiking, and he was showing me an area, and we were talking about how there's no cell phone service out here. It doesn't make sense with Starlink, how it's not possible. I would love to see that. This reminds me of what a time we live in, but how amazing is that. Why do we think Bitcoin is down so much today? By the way, our positionings is kind of as great as you can get in the moment, with NVIDIA continuing to hold on over here. And we see that Ethereum is still holding it short. And now we have Cardano with a pending enter short as well. And I would say that's pretty solid in this regime that we're currently in. As far as why Bitcoin is down so much, I mean, I saw the NASDAQ down earlier, 2.4%. So to see Bitcoin down 5% on the day makes sense. Don't forget, we said that if we have a resumption down, that we have this area to be targeting, which is still down a little bit further. Doesn't mean that we'll hit it, and it doesn't mean that we'll hold it either. If we don't hold it, the opportunity exists for bringing in potentially here a test of the April low. Why do I think it's happening? I think that there's a degree of uncertainty about the government shutdown. And it's terrible as the elected leaders of the country are trying to basically take care of the country, that the opposition in a few month period is able to shut down the government potentially twice. And the thing is that they are talking about, well, unless you take away the funding of ICE, and there's a lot of material online. Elon has been boosting a lot of the material online, and it shows the amount of people under each president that have been here illegally sent home. And what's really wild is that under the current administration, the numbers are lower than the previous, yet all the hoopla is here. So I don't know. That's just interesting. But the Democrats are saying unless you remove ICE funding, we're going to shut down the government. And that's likely why we're seeing the move in markets that we're seeing here today. Don't forget, it is possible that as liquidity is just being injected back in over here, that last time Bitcoin made two lower lows. And we saw tech leading, tech stronger. It's exactly what we're seeing right now. So I see a lot of the same, not anything different. I hope it's different. I hope we don't take out a low. And then there's one other thing I wanted to show you. And this might be controversial. So I'm sorry if it is, but we just like to talk about things. So let me just talk about things with you. And this is a for instance. And I think that the world that we're moving towards very rapidly becomes a lot different than we've been in the past. I don't think this is just an example, but we do have this very serious situation that has occurred in Minnesota. And we know that after the death of Alex Preedy, this has become a very, very controversial situation. And then you see like new footage appears that shows Alex spitting on authorities and then like kicking in a taillight. And you know me, I think you kind of know my views, but what I'm saying is, how do you know that's real? Like, and if you ask me, like my view on the situation, which is from very far, is like, I think that an American citizen has every right to bring a legal licensed firearm to a protest. But I think that if you're doing that, you should act and behave as such, and you should not be acting aggressive if you're carrying a firearm, right? And what I'm saying is, how do you know that footage is real and not generated? There's no way any of us know. It seems to, oh, look, this guy was spitting on agents. Maybe he was doing that. There's nothing to suggest that he would or wouldn't. But what I'm saying to you is, how are we supposed to accept anything that we see in video in today's world? Because the days of like long fingers and 3 fingers and 7 fingers are gone, right? The technology continues to increase. And in this particular instance, like I'm not on a side and I'm not saying, but I am saying, what would stop the current administration from produced AI generated film of something that would support what happened? Or vice versa, it could go the other way. Like, I'm not saying this is what they're doing, but I'm saying, how do we know? And I think that is important because we spoke about recently what happened to Michael Saylor. There's AI generated film and it's put out. I don't know if you guys were on the internet over the weekend, but if you were on X and you saw all of that clawbot campaign going on, that was a campaign generated by AI, by clawbot itself. And that's why all those things went viral and all those posts went viral, because they were exceptionally crafted. And, the reason I'm talking about it, so that as a community, as a group, we could prepare ourselves for the world that we're moving into. And that's all. I mean, maybe today there's still that room for proof of fakery. Well, if this is true, then is there still a moon landing debate, or is the technology good enough? And because I've seen a lot of experts in the fields go back and forth between showing why the moon landing is real, and then with people using the same video and images showing why it's fake. So there could be debate, and that's like stuff that happened in 50 years ago, not today. So yeah, this is in that blah 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 blah. Jordan falling out. There was something over. The FX volatility has been picking up, right? And now you saw it on the precious metals today, and now you're seeing it. Well, we haven't seen it yet on equities. Maybe today. I mean, a 2.5% move on the Nasdaq is really not so big. And if you all remember what volatility looks like, let me tell you, this is what volatility looks like. And those were some mega ranges. This day over here, when Trump said buy, you saw a 20,000 point move on the Nasdaq. That's volatility. That's absolutely insanity, Ace. That's a day trader's dream. And, but we're seeing volatility pick up right now across markets. And yeah, thank God to have our moats and our positioning. And right now, we are positioned comfortably on the right side with no emotion. And there is nothing like that. That is absolutely, absolutely priceless. Yo, big shout out. Thank you everyone for being here and just being a part of the conversation. So moving back towards the commodities and by the way, Don is, put out, we'll call V1 of buy side boost once a day. And working on, I have the one problem with Ethereum where I haven't matched the performance, and it's actually much better. So that's good. That's a happy accident potentially. Once I find out what it is, which I don't have the opportunity to do in this moment. But he's already working on V2. So that's awesome. The more time spent in modeling, and there's no rush. The templates that are out here, and for buy side boost using our V4 templates and just on the buy side are phenomenal, right? Having the opportunity though to do that only once a day, that opens up a high degree of lifestyle for a lot of people. And Don, what you're doing is awesome, and there's no rush, right? We want what's best. And I look forward to when I could help contribute there. And then what else was I? Oh, commodities. So let me just take a quick turn back. And much like here, where the massive expansion sets up, in my view, a period where you have further growth opportunities that become more attractive because of all the liquidity out there. And you could think things like, Russell 2000. You should think things like Bitcoin. And then you should be thinking things about now's the time where you see funds flowing down the risk curve, which is why meme stocks and which is why altcoins become so attractive, right? And that is why precious metals are less attractive during that phase. And I think and feel be a similar situation for commodities. And if we're able to reaccelerate this thing over here and get it running hot, for why it's running hot, I think that they become more attractive. Picture the business cycle extending out and picture what is going to be, a time and opportunity for speculation, including in meme stocks and including in certain altcoins. I think that commodities might cool off and consolidate during that period. And then after the massive devaluation and when inflation is beginning to kick up and when growth is going to slow down, I think that's when we're going to see a great commodity boom. Now, my timing could be well off on that. And this today could be the best entry you get or not, right? And that's the conundrum. And you have people like Druckenmiller, and he's like, listen, I want to take a big position. I just don't think now is the time. I think I'm going to get him. I don't know, like if he would have taken, when he was first doing the research, a position, and I forgot when he said it, but let's just say it was 450, right? And the question is, if there is some type of bust, and you could go back to the last one, and you have during the lockdowns, copper came off 30%. So from the high today, 30% back towards 4.5%. So there you go. So what is better, waiting for the bust, or is it positioning today? And then if you get an opportunity here for into some type of liquidity situation, well, at that point, cash is not only king, cash is the most precious thing available, and people have a lack of it, which is why other assets are being sold and why you see the crash occurring. But there you go. I think well laid out and enough. Y'all, have a beautiful day. Stay on the right side. Stay on the right side. Continue to work together, right? CTM is brilliant in so much as that it is a group of people who work together in a positive, supportive environment, looking towards achieving the same purpose. Lots of love to each and every one of you. God bless you. Have a beautiful day, everyone. I'll see you all back on the inside.